What's up, dog? How you doing?
Awesome. Yeah, I'm good, man. I'm good. I'm good. It's cold as hell in Australia.
Yeah, it's hot as hell here in Washington, D.C.
Yeah, right.
Can you
It's
believe it's been a year since we put out Tap on the Glass?
yes, amazing. It's pretty flown past and so much has happened. It feels like it was 5 years ago.
Right. It definitely feels like it's been longer to me since this album came out. And it probably has something to do with the fact that we spent so much time working on it. Right?
Yes.
No, I
Yeah.
reached out to you to get beats from you for the Karma Kids
Yeah.
in like 2017 or 16 or something.
Yep.
And you had just had a kid and
Sure.
you had kind of disappeared from rap production at that point.
Yes.
And I was like, I haven't heard from Das in a few months. I'm going to hit him up. And you were like, oh, thanks for hitting me up. And that's kind of where it all began.
Yeah. That was hard. That was a weird time. I was like,
Mhm.
it was very clear that there's room for like family and work and like that was the priority,
Yeah.
like, and it's been, honestly, it's kind of been weird coming back after that because like I was blessed with rap projects, right? Because there were a bunch of projects that people were working on and I didn't have to do any more like creative stuff. It was only ever admin and mix down, feedback, blah blah blah. And you could do that, but
yeah, man. So today we are going to go through the songs and focus on the production side of them. And we're doing this in celebration of the instrumentals of Tap on the Glass being released by DOS4GW and myself, Headtrip. So you're going to get some behind the scenes info on how this album was produced, where I assume where DOS's original beats started. We're going to get some insight on that. I'll tell you a little bit about my post-production work and some of my composition work that I did. And I'll try not to spend too much time on my lyrics because we talked about that on the initial press run of the album. And we'll try to keep it to the beats because that's what we have. They're on streaming. They're pay what you want on Bandcamp. If a rapper feels like rapping over them and sending them to me, I'll gladly laugh at how inferior your bars are to mine.
frankly.
Frankly, no, I would earnestly love to hear another rapper spit over some of these beats. I didn't think that they were weird. So Das sent me about 50, 60 beats when I requested a beat pack years and years ago. And apparently, according to a lot of listeners and music critics, I chose weird beats, including, I think you told me that I chose weird beats.
yeah, because rappers always do choose the weird beats, man. Like they never pick the good ones. Like that's what that's code for. It's like, oh, you picked the interesting ones.
This is what happens when you give somebody 60 beats, dog.
I know. And like since then I've been, people have been, okay, very occasionally people hit me up and I send much smaller packs these days because like I don't know what's going to come back, but to be honest, I have the same hit success rate of making art with people when I send one song or 60 songs or 6 songs. It doesn't seem to have too much of an effect apart from how much like anxiety I'm feeling about it at the time, like
sure. Yeah, my approach when I send beats to vocalists or musicians is how many beats do you want? Because I know like
sure,
like the homies Shrapnel, they don't want 60 beats. They want 20 beats that the producer thinks they're gonna crush, or just 5. And they like want specifically catered beat packs. Whereas I'm like, give me whatever you're gonna give me. I can work,
sure.
I can work with 4, I can work with 60. I don't want more than 100 beats.
All right, note to self: never send 100 beats.
From you, sure, send me 100 beats. Because that stuff's you make crazy beats.
Thank you, I appreciate it. No, it was great, and I remember getting those demos back and being like, shit, this is going to be cool if we can like pull it off, like, because I think one of the things that for me has been a challenge, is just like getting the projects done.
That's a tough part of it.
Yeah, exactly. Like getting stuff out there, like that's the kind of challenge, I guess, for me. The creativity, actually executing on the music and whatnot, like that kind of just boils out of me whenever I you know I give it whenever I can give it a chance. So that's the easy bit.
Again, you gave me beats so long ago, and we probably spent 5 years on this record, which isn't a lot of time for me. I generally spend 5 years on an album. I'm speeding it up now. Like, my process has sped up drastically.
Yep.
The record that I'm putting out shortly, I did in 3 years, and I'm hoping to do 2 years from now on. But it is what it is. If I'm always working on a record, then what does it matter how long it's been that I've been working on it, because something's already up in the queue, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So, especially when I can take the reins, as long as I have the stems and the blessing from the producer, like, which, thank you for trusting me with your stems.
Oh, look, that's it's totally fine, and that's definitely a learning from the past. Like my skill set is not, as you say, project management and polished production. Like I've learned that the difficult way. So I am more than happy now to be like, oh wow, you want to engage with my art in some way?
Yeah, at all?
Yeah, exactly.
You want to hang out?
Yeah,
sure.
Exactly.
So please tell me how you came up with the beat for Pica. What was the process there? Did you hit something like?
So it was the rhythm. Yeah, it definitely was the rhythm.
Did you tap that out?
Yeah. So that was one of the main ways that I made beats in this era. Was purely on the laptop on this guy, just sitting on the train. Because when I was living in Melbourne, which I was at the time, I had a 40-minute train journey into the city from where I was living, and so I had 40 minutes to at 7 a.m. To make weird music, and sometimes I'd have a little toot on the way to the train station at 6:45 a.m. and just sit on the train, just be like, all right. And I think riding on the train, riding on public transport and stuff, weirdly, is a huge part of that era for me. And it was really interesting because you're there with 100 other people or more. You can look up and down and see, I don't know how many hundreds of people in this train. And Melbourne's a pretty big city, and there's lots of people. It's really badly designed, so there's people everywhere. It's not like Tokyo, but it's close sometimes. But you're also completely by yourself. You're also totally alone and in your own world, and ensconced in who you are or whatever, and
a very New York City kind of alone amongst the masses.
Yeah, that's right. And I think that in a lot of these beats, I mean, obviously a lot of the stuff that I've written in the past and since this stuff is all very heavy and quite negative, and there's a lot of influence from drum and bass and 90s horrorcore and that kind of stuff, but it just comes out like that unintentionally. But I think the environment plays a huge part of that as well. And so sitting on the train and listening to these kind of rhythms is I get lost in myself real easily in that environment where the stimulus is right there. It's just here it is, the drum machine's just on the screen in front of you, and yeah. And a lot of the time I would be sitting, because I would have, this was pre COVID and pre-work at home all the time, and so I would go in every day, and I would have 40 minutes in the morning and 40 minutes in the afternoon. So I would try to, my most prolific era, I'd write a beat in the morning, start to finish, and then in the afternoon when I was zonked 6 o'clock or whatever, I'd be all right, let's just listen back to this for 20 minutes and double it up and put a little range, do a little dropout, and then export it when I'm passing the second last station on the line, and there's the song. And that was an amazing process.
Parameter. That's you have that commute to do that, and then you walk away from it.
Yeah. And it's not I wasn't super strict, you know, like because I was doing it
Yeah.
so much, I was like, oh, if someone calls me, or you know something happens, and you know, I get distracted, or if I'm having to do work, so I don't have to do it at at home later at night, like sure, because I'm just doing it literally like 5 days out of 7. Yeah, that was a big thing for me, like trying to learn about okay, how can I like arrange my environment, but then also like the schedule of my life, so that I can get my like I can catch some of the ooze that's like boiling out of my fucking like nostrils.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
For real, it's important to put that somewhere, to jar it, if you will. Um, I think all I did was bring it back for 8 bars.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I wrote the verse separately, and then I listened, then I found the beat, and I was like, this is definitely the beat.
And also, like, this is a faster tempo that I would usually like. I don't know how many of those beats that I sent you were like 59 BPM or 53 BPM, and this is like 80, right? Like this is
a lot of them are in that BPM range of this
uncomfortable tempo.
Yeah, and I got to go on it. I've been performing this one since 2018, probably.
Yeah, awesome.
I've been opening with it for a really long time because it's just like, it's like, what's up? Knock on the door.
Yeah.
And I remember like 2 weeks before I was gonna upload the album to DistroKid, you were like, what if we put Get Me Out first?
Yes.
Because Pika's really abrasive, and what if we like eased into the album? And I was like, I'll listen. I think I said I'll listen to it that way, but I've been listening to it. Yeah, and I did. I listened to it, but it did convince me to put Get Me Out as the first single.
Sure.
And ease people into the album like overall, but not for the individual listening experience of the album.
Yeah, fair enough. And I'm glad, like it's good.
It's good.
I'm happy with that decision in retrospect. You know, like I think yeah, it works.
In an era of blues and Motown loops with no drums, we made an album with basically only drums and weird synth noises. We accidentally did the opposite of what everybody was doing, and I love that.
Yeah, look, I that's one of the things, and there's a lot of straight breaks on this record, right? Like if you want to talk about the next track, the next track, you know, I know it as Grey Coat, and I still think about it as Grey Coat. I don't know why. Some of these titles like changed, but some.
This didn't have a beat change when I first wrote to it.
No, and the original one, I was looking in the beat pack the other day. It's like, oh wow, it's like a different version of it.
Yeah, for sure, much different version.
Yeah,
like it didn't change much, but this did.
Yeah. So the switch up, that's a 4 a.m. kind of moment, you know, like had too much of something, like home, and like, all right, let's
sick of this. I was surprised. I was surprised when I got that back. I mean, I had like, I'd sent you a bunch of the tracks at that point, and you sent me the stems, you know, and I would send you a song, you'd send me the stems, and we were just like working. I was like, okay, hit them with one at a time. Let's just chip away at this. And I sent you that, and you sent me back the stems, and we're like, yeah, and I switched the beat halfway through because I got kind of bored with it, and it just like
just a straight like whoever it is, Winston's or something.
Yeah, and that really informed the way that I rewrote this song in a big way, because I was like, all right, I gotta come like extra on the second half of this song now.
And it's cool because like in the way the record like flows, you know, it gives it a, you know, a bit of a grey moment, and like
a grey coat moment.
Grey coat moment, that's right. It was super wet. It was super wet when I wrote this. That's why it's called Grey Coat.
Okay. Yeah, and you have a little reprieve, and I come into the beat kind of talking, and you don't really understand where I'm catching the beat at first, or so people tell me. And then it becomes a very direct line, and it's like, nah, this whole album's gonna be intense. Like, that was a moment that we gave you to be nice. But now we're back.
Yeah, exactly. And that's
you know what the sound at the very beginning is that I added in post-production? That's the sound that my hard drive makes when you turn it on. So this was the first beat on the album chronologically that I really went in on. I like take a bar here and just add tons of distortion to all the drums. I take a bar here and put a low shelf on the synth. I take a bar there. I take out some snares. I take out some kicks. I must have spent 20 hours just like tinkering with this, because as I would mix, so as I mix the beats for DOS, he would approve or be like, it's kind of missing something. I remember you would always say that all you New Yorkers, you scoop the mids out of my beats. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to like find a way to fit your mids into the beat. And so most of the mixing process was me making room for my voice, and then DOS being like, I miss this element of the song, I miss that element of the beat. And so I would like bring them back in. And a lot of that is by picking my fundamental frequencies in my voice and just taking slivers of those frequencies out of the beats instead of like the entire mid section, which was fine because I had nothing to do during quarantine other than mix this album. So like it was fine.
You're welcome then.
Yeah, it was good.
Just gave you some opportunity to go for a walk, like take it for a drive. Like,
why not?
Yeah, and like I think a lot of the time, in the process of these, it's like it's much more about texture and feel and like vibe for me. Like I'm not really thinking the song is always secondary, because if you don't have that like texture that's sort of unique to the song, then for me, I can't. That's 80% of it, for me.
Yeah,
so
I feel you.
And I think that's why like mixing is hard, and like I care a lot less about it these days. But as you say, like lockdown, quarantine, whatever. But I think trying to intentionally, I definitely, especially since even since these beats, I definitely have stripped back a lot of the stuff, like when I'm trying to create those textures, I'm actually intentionally trying to use less elements and cut away more rather than adding more. And even with writing more, I'm writing a lot more up-tempo music now and trying to write rave music and this kind of thing. And it's the same, like it's still, you're still putting layers on to, signify structure and trying to build up a interesting texture, but just trying to use fewer elements and like even literally just shorter sounds and stuff like that. Like,
all right, so up next, what do we got? Quiet Game?
Yeah, man. Yeah, Quiet Game.
This beat is crazy. What did you make this on? Because when I finally eventually got the original beat from you, it was like a bunch of different tempos, and like, did you play it out live, or like what was it, an arpeggio?
Yeah.
What the
So Quiet Game's a good one, because that's just circuit. That's just I'll get it. Here we go.
Get it. Yes.
Okay.
Please show me what you made this monster of a beat on. What is this thing? What is he gonna pull out?
Yeah, for a moment. Yep. So it's just this. And this is one of those ones that like it's like it's a Novation circuit, the first version of the Novation circuit. It's like a drum sampler with like total 1.5 minutes or something, or 2 minutes of sample time. So like everything is teeny tiny, and it's got 2 synth engines in it as well from the Novation. From the like the synths themselves are terrible. Like the standalone version of these synths is awful, but because there's 4 track, it's got a 4-track sample sequencer type thing, and it's fucking great. Like the specs and everything about this machine's terrible, but like the feel and the vibe and the groove that comes out of it is like it changed the way that I sort of saw how I could record music. And it was the first like piece of hardware. I've written tracks on hardware a lot like beforehand, like I had the OP1 and I've written tracks on that, and plenty of other things, but there was always a computer involved. I was always like layering up sounds or like bouncing stuff out and then messing with it on computer, and there was always that until I got one of these, and Yeah, so a lot of the files, and I think there's a couple of them, God's Lens is like this too, where it's basically just I send you like this 12-minute like odyssey of like, and that's literally I recorded some of them. Some of them are on YouTube. You can watch me like
sick.
like the full songs.
You have the video for this one on YouTube?
This may have been before I started doing that, because I started doing that when I was trying to write music for the video game that I was doing.
The video game.
Yeah. So the beat OST available. Check link in bio. It's I was trying to document a bunch of that, and it was just fun. I was just doing it at night. It was when I was running the Patreon Beats thing, and just trying to provide as much like content as I could in my adult state.
Record everything
all the time. Put it on. Someone will care. But yeah, the way that the beats come out of this thing, I really love it, because it's like the macro knobs. There's always something interesting. You just turn something, and this sample gets a little shorter, or like this one gets and it's got like reverb and a delay in it, and so there's a lot of that sort of. If you make, I tried making a lot of ambient music on it as well, because it's really fun, because it's so immediate, it's so there, and like
that sounds like a lot of fun. It's what I always wanted, like an MPC to be, and it never was, or like what I wanted Machine to be, and Machine is closer to that, but you still need a computer. At least you did when I was messing with Machine. So you gave me the loop that would become Quiet Game, and I wrote a verse to it. And it's just, it has the intro that happens after like the sample that we'll get into, but din, 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 and then the hi-hats come in, and then the whole thing drops, and it's like a huge drop. It's really exciting. And then it does that. I think it's a 16-bar verse maybe, and then goes back to din, 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 and just repeats basically. And I wrote my verse, and I was like, okay, it's a short song, but then, quarantine. And I was like, what if I got Colossal Structure on this? What if I got Sketch 185 on this? And next thing I knew, I needed more of the beat, right? So that I could. So DOS sends me this like original recording, which it starts off at a much slower tempo, speeds up, the sample gets like affected the whole time. It sounds different throughout the entire thing, the drums. And then eventually I find the pocket that he gets into, and it doesn't even last that long. It lasts for like maybe 24 bars, and then he switches it up and moves to something else. So I had enough weird stuff happening in the same tempo, or almost the same tempo of what I wrote to, that I just went in, and like you hear it a lot during Colossal Structure's verse when he goes, "Ego trips don't get no playback, none of Mr. Pip sound bombing." The beat just completely shifts, and like I didn't do that. All I did was find that chunk of the original composition that you made and just plopped it in there. And then I found like hi-hats that sounded different from somewhere else and put those over the hook. It was really fun to pull it apart. That's a crazy beat, dog. I mean, that is the fastest beat or the slowest beat on the album, depending on how you look at it. And it's the most like ravey. I'd say it's the most non-hip hop beat on the album.
Probably, yeah, exactly. And that, I don't. Obviously, I'm not trying to make this about you, but like I like the where thematically we went in that song. Like, I think it's really nice. Yeah, not even compliment, but like, it completes it in a way that it wouldn't be able to. You wouldn't be able to get that just with the instrumental itself. But I think one of the things that doing these instrumental releases is great for is what you get back, what crazy little demos people are sending you over the phone and stuff like that. Like so like you said before, like go nuts so we can judge you. And
I would like to hear more people. This is definitely a beat that I would like to hear how people tackle, because when you hit this kind of tempo where you can either, like Colossal Structure is such a good fast rapper, but he hit me back and was like, I recorded my verse today, I didn't rap fast.
And like
and so he does a little bit, but like, and then Sketch just is Sketch, and he slows up and speeds down, and floats over the tempo of the beat. And it's weird to say the word float about Sketch's delivery, but I'm talking about his cadence, not his delivery, which is an important distinction. And he like floats through it, which is just bizarre. And I'd straight up like to hear. That's why I wanted the other members of Tomorrow Kings, because I'd like to hear somebody just like bar out really fast.
Yeah, another one of those. Yeah, definitely rave influence, and because this is these kind of, they don't make these sort of machines like you say. It's not an MPC. It's not for like sampling loops and that kind. It doesn't even have sample input. Like it's not.
Oh wow.
You just you're supposed to be able to drive it over USB. So and I never connected with MPC either. I think because of the amount of work it is to like just simply get something going. And for me, it's like I just need to get the like heartbeats of this this tune down, and that's really hard on MPC, at least for me. I didn't come from that school, so
yeah, totally. I go through like this online archive of old like school and PSA videos from like that are so old that they don't have copyrights, and that's where I got the initial music. And then it didn't last long enough, so I like whistled along to it.
Yeah, it works so well in rap albums.
Just whistle along. And then I had my aunt Becky say the intro sample, where she's telling the class to quiet down. Yeah. And
sure.
she's on the radio, and so she has a good voice. Actually, she gave me this microphone. And I know, right? She's like, "Hey, I got a mic in the back. You want it?" Anyway.
I really want to be that guy. That's why I never try any audio gear. So one day I can be like, "Hey, you need this 90s era sampler?"
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no, I really love all the accoutrements and stuff in this, because again, it's quite, the texture of this beat is just like ba 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 ba. Like it's pretty. It's just there. So
it goes off live. By the way, when this hits live, I'm actually trying to figure out a second verse, because people just are in there with me.
Nice.
And then the very end of the track, like I mess with this track so much, but the very end of it, me and Sketch leave the bar where the character he's talking about,
and that might be my favorite moment on the album. Just quietly, yeah.
So I used audio from a bar that had no music playing in it in Chicago, because I showed up after last call, and I just put my phone down and recorded the room for like 20 minutes. And I've used that audio many places, including on Sketch 185 and Teddy Faley's song Red Light Bars on his album with Analog Tape Dispenser under the alias War Church.
Sure.
Under their second album. So that's the sound that happens at the beginning of that. And then as we exit the bar and the door closes and you hear the streets outside, that's actually Astoria right outside the bar that I used to hang out with him. I was just out there hitting my weed pen and was just like, oh, I better get some noise recorded before I move out of New York. And so that's the bar that he works at right outside the door at like 2 a.m.
And like, let's demolish the fourth wall. Is the line? Did you ask him to say the line, or did it just come out?
So at the very end of the song, Sketch asks nobody, really, did you get? She's kind of cute. Did you get her name?
Yeah.
And then he goes, okay. And so I recorded. Hey, Sketch, time to go. Oh, okay. She was really cool. Did you get her name? Nah, dog. You were the one talking to her. Word. And we walk out. And he was like, hey, I love what you did, but don't say my name, because I'm not talking about myself exactly.
Yeah.
He was like, just say, hey, man. And so I did. I changed it to, hey, man, it's time to go. Hey, man, the cab's here, or whatever. And he's like, oh, she's cute. You get her name? And I'm like, no, dog. You were the one talking to her. So I think that Sheepdog is the most hip hop beat on the album. I think that this is the rap beat that's on this album. If there's one rap beat on Tap on the Glass, it is Sheepdog, and that's why I put the bars that start this song on it. because I rapped those first couple bars for a few people, and they were like, "You got to pick a dope beat for that. Don't screw it up." And I was like, "Okay." And so I picked my favorite beat of yours and that 50 beat pack that sounded like a rap beat.
Oh, sure, yeah, and like the beat name for this is "Fuck," and
Oh, right, this is fuck.
yeah, this is "Fuck." Sheepdog is fuck.
Sheepdog is fuck.
Sheepdog is fuck. I think so this is the most rap track, and it's got the straightest break on it as well. I didn't even chop the.
No.
I mean, something I like to do is just leave the vocals and stuff on these breaks, because I'm in two minds about it these days, right? Because I tend to try and really chop the hell out of everything these days.
Fun.
I think because it's more. I don't want to get, copyright.
We don't want to get sued yet.
I don't want to get strikes, and I've had a few opportunities in the past. People wanted to use my music in syncs, like games and presentations and stuff, and good friend of mine, producer, went through the same thing with like a big brand, with like a big paycheck potentially coming, and didn't end up coming because of oh shit, let's just use a file and let's not chop it up too much, and it's a shit thing. It's shit to, and so that's kind of, there's a shift there now, and I would never write a beat like this these days. Like that's the funny thing about it. It's very, it's a previous echelon, so yeah, this. I think the hook of this track is the one that gets stuck in my head the most when I listen back to the record.
Oh, nice.
Because it's such a my dad was a preacher, right? And
I did not know that.
Yeah, and he wasn't that preachy about it. Funnily enough, he
probably got his preaching out at church.
Probably, but he also came to it late. He came to it when he was like my age now. So
nice.
He figured that maybe kids don't give a fuck about this, and we didn't. And so yeah, I think hearing a lot of that. Like that symbolism is really familiar to me, as I'm sure it is for a lot of people in America as well. Right? So turning it around like that on like a straight like break flip, and I'm going to put an 808 in here, and I'm going to saturate it a little bit, but like, and then I'm going to find some sound, and I'm going to listen to it on the train like for 38 minutes.
Right.
And just like vibe to it. So
where did that piano sample come from? Did you play the piano on your keys? Did you find a sample?
Yeah, so it's wonky because it's played like Cubase has a mode where like most DAWs have, where you press a key combination. I think it's Alt K, and it turns the keyboard into a little piano keyboard. That's, I'm pretty sure that's just a little like Rompler kind of plug in, and just playing the little wonky piano line so that I could write the bass line to it with something that I could anchor to. And that's another reason why I usually leave the vocals on a break in, because it provides an anchor point. Yeah, exactly. And because it's slightly different each time as well. It's like it goes back.
Yeah, I noticed that. I can't. It's odd because I know that there's a repetition to it, but it's hard to catch. I've also tried to play the piano line on a piano, and I can't ever get the rhythm down without like listening to it, because it's off, right?
Yes, it's off. Yeah,
which is delightful, and it gives me the opportunity to be on the beat, and then anchor melodies, because the melody is so strange.
It also has something like that. It's one of those melody lines that in your head, when you're hearing it in isolation, it creates a rhythm of itself, its own. And then when you drop something really, really regimented on it,
definitely.
It switches your
it's
sort of
so
perception.
Distorting. And so like that track started, the version of that track that Das sent me started as, it starts on the album. It's just the piano loop, and then the break comes in out of nowhere, and it's surprising and confusing, kind of like Quiet Game. And then it loops, and it does that again, which is, we just pretty much left it. I mean, I looped it.
Yeah.
And my post-production on that, I took a snare out here, I dropped a beat here, I made it distorted for that much. I spent hours on it. It was fun. But I was just playing with a loop. And then the most thing that I did was with the hook, right? Just repeating that hook and then creating echoes and putting weird effects
layers,
on it. Yeah. And like that, because it's a very simple beat and I wanted to keep it pretty simple. I didn't want to overdo the beat. I didn't want to make the piano go like bing, 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 bing. I was,
yes.
Yeah.
You could have done that. And I'm so suggestible. It's like, yeah, oh, well, sure, yeah.
So the only song on the chopping block for me was this next song, Corporate Voyeurs, and it was simply because I didn't understand where it fit on the album. I couldn't fit it anywhere in the sequence. So this is a huge beat. It's so strange because it's like the break happens the entire time and the synths happen over it. And depending on which synth is playing that bar, it like covers up different parts of the break sonically. And so then when it shifts, you're listening to what seems like a new break, but it's not. It's just that the synths are so heavy and intense that they just like distort the breaks.
And it's like, this is kind of the effect that I was trying to create with those compressors back in 2004, right?
Gotcha.
And it's, I feel like I'm really glad this one is on the record, and for those playing at home, for what the beat is actually called Rivet.
Yes, Rivet.
And it's because I was sitting next to the edge of the train car, and I could see the rivets. And usually when I'm naming things, I'm like, what am I looking at? Rivets.
Simple as that.
And this also for me is the, like, usually on my records there's you've got a happy song somewhere, like you've got a calm resolution, you've got a moment, pull yourself together, and that's what I like about this, especially where it is on the record, because just before Hands Off / Automotive Buddies, even though the beat it's not a calm song.
I was gonna say this is your happy resolve.
This is my
moment.
happiest button. Yeah, exactly. I can actually write happy music. I did write a happy ambient record. Go and check that out. It's like Ambient Works. 15 to 17.
It's good.
But
I would never classify this as happy, but I understand the chord progression is almost inspiring.
Well, that's it. Yeah, it kind of comes from that. Listening to too much Elton John and Queen and stuff when I was a kid.
Yeah.
Like, especially the turnaround with the I changed the way. It's like changing the chord inversion in the second half, and with the different bass, like the melody kind of shifts, and I changed what fundamental is used, and that's the bit I listen for every time I listen to that song, because I feel like that's kind of the progression. How the song progresses is through that sort of melody, and then when it changes, it kind of you're getting a more rounder and like deeper version of the texture. So it's like, okay,
that's such an interesting way to put that. I feel like this is the kind of beat that could go on forever.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the, like, it's a short song though. That's the funny thing. Like this is one where I feel like when I'm listening to it, it's like, oh, this has been going for a while, and I'm like getting into the progression of it. But it's only, how long is it? It's only 2 minutes long, 2:15. So.
And I did very little post-production on this.
Yeah, right. That's pretty much
straightforward. I had enough trouble just trying to mix this to make it have that intensity, but fit my voice on it. And I did the same thing that I did on Pica, where I have my voice where I'm the loudest voice that you hear me rapping, and I'm also yelling in the background, just very, very quietly. And depending on which bar you're on and which frequency is crushing everything around it, you can hear more or less of the yelling in the background. Really, really interesting production. I didn't know how this would go over live, and I think this song, when I play this live now, I go Sheepdog straight into this. So I finish my verse and I go, "If the Lord is my shepherd, and the sheepdog's the devil." And then I go, "Yeah, who are you, kid? The drum, but
Oh yeah,
and I don't even skip. So it's like the same song, and that combo goes off every place I play it, even if they're not ready for like something super intense, because I can deliver both those songs without like hopping around, because they're bar for bar, the most like punchliney kind of hip hop
sure.
tracks. And again, this is probably this is the second most hip hop, East Coast hip hop track.
And it's not a straight break, but it's pretty close.
It is pretty close. You chop it at the end
I
there.
do chop it a little bit. Yeah, exactly.
Which is great. I mean, I didn't have to do. I mean, I guess I didn't have to do it for the other tracks either, but I didn't touch this one very much, and that leads us into
Yes, All Tomorrow's Parties, which is what you would know as Hands Off, but I cannot separate the what the song, the journey that this one has been on.
dude, what a journey.
This has definitely been on a journey. Like, so this track, I wrote it, and this is really early DOS. Like, so this is, I think you can see the video, just one of the videos. Yeah, there's the System 100, which is that big like old analog thing, and this is full of that, and most of my early stuff is full of that as well, and the whole bit at the start, and all the like weird noise and the bloop, 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 and all that. That's all. Yeah, exactly. And I thought, this is, after I wrote that track, I was like, oh man, this is pretty cool, but I don't know if anyone would rock on this. Like I like this, and it's going to be on one of my solo records. Like it's going to be on one of the. This is before Suicide B, so I think it was probably that, in that sort of space. Suicide B available on DSPs. Go check it out.
Check it out.
And it was. Yeah, I sent it over to Elucid after we met in 2014, I guess it was.
Wow.
When I was over in NYC, and staying at the studio in Bushwick that GDP was stewarding at the time.
Right. I remember that spot.
Yeah, and I remember catching up with Elucid in the bar at the front there, and like going to sushi and stuff with him and Woods and stuff, and like so I ended up playing them a bit of music, and I was like, all right, here's some of the new record, and Elucid was I think pretty quickly it's like, oh yeah, is this free? What's going on?
Yeah.
And so we made the track from there, and it was going to come out on a release we were working on, but that was one of the ones that we got to 80% with, and it's really great, and the potential is fantastic. And I mean, he and a bunch of people put in a lot of effort on that record, which is like amazing, like really amazing. And I'm hoping that
a great record
can like escape the
right. I'll put that song out with Sketch.
Yeah.
Any day.
Yeah.
Give me the rights to that track. I'll put it as a single.
The one with Woods on it as well.
Oh yeah, dude. I mean, that whole album is dope. I remember when Elucid asked me on that song, and I've talked about this in other podcasts, but that was dope. He said, "Headtrip, I need you to scream on a track."
Yeah.
And that was
said, I know the guy. It was
yeah.
before I came into your orbit, I guess.
Yep, and that was technically our first collab, but that would get shelved and wouldn't come back into our project until the very end.
Yeah.
So it was like kind of the first and the last. And you also ran this beat through like tape emulation, and you must have just pushed it to its limits, because the stereo channels are completely separate. And it's just so wild. It sounds completely differently mixed / mastered than the rest of the album.
Yeah.
Because you guys were there. Like, you guys were at the finish line with that record. And so the song was just it already sounded so crazy.
Yeah, but this is one of those things where like that's a learning for me, in that the way I produced that song from the start was all wrong, like it was it was using a compressor to create a sound rather than I don't use compressors anymore, like full stop, anymore in my music. And it's like, just because of how many issues I'd had over the years with like, oh, this beat sounds banging when I put it on the stereo, when I play it in the car, when I'm doing it at a show, back when I used to do that. And then someone sends me a demo. It sounds like shit. Like, what's going on? What's
Because
going
there's
on?
no room left for a vocal.
Yeah, exactly. And like I was driving everything so crazy, even though I thought I was like mixing it nicely.
Hey.
I've always had my monitors. I've learned recently. I've always had 2 big monitors for the rooms I've been like for 20 years, and whoops.
You know, I mean, it created a pretty wonderful effect, though, I must say, and like. It took us a while, but we passed it back and forth until we were both happy with it. And the challenge with this song to mix for me was that Elucid's vocals were burned into the track. So I couldn't mess with the track that much because it would just sound too different from verse A to verse B. And I did a pass where I totally changed the way the beat sounded on the second verse to make it intentional and to make that hard line, but it didn't work out. And we just leaned into the chaos of it. And honestly, this is the only song on the album that I didn't go back and record less loud. Like I was level 9 on a lot of these songs, but I backed off. Like Pika, I backed off. You can hear my original vocals in the background, but I came down to 6 on most of the songs, 4 on some of them, because it just, people don't like to get yelled at, and it just didn't fit for a half an hour. It fit for the EP that we originally had, but this song I didn't back off at all, and that's the only way to do it, I think, for my voice, based on what I had. And I didn't change like anything about this beat. I cut off the intro and the outro are half as long as they were.
So the thing about that is that on the Elucid record, there's that is like fading in over what's happening in the previous track.
Gotcha.
That track is like, you're exposed to more of that track than you might have normally.
Understanding where this placement goes, this is the shift. This is sonically the shift in the album, where you get screamed on. It's wild. Elucid's voice shows up, and there's all these strange sounds that bring the song in and out. And from here on out, we get opera, stories, and the most out of place beat on the entire record, which is the second half of the album. So to me, this is the shift, in mood. And you just got yelled at, and now you feel all, you're now in fight or flight mode for the rest of the album, instead of being in like observe from a distance.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
So that brings us to Insomnis Prestigia.
Yes, it does.
Which kind of reminds me of Corporate Voyeurs.
Yeah, I suppose because it has the same kind of progressive. It's got a bit of a like progressive rock's another thing that I've listened to a lot.
Yeah,
and still do. Like Richie Blackmore with that terrible Rainbow band that he had, and like, so it's like that's definitely the influence there. Like that's where it comes from. But
it's epic.
Yeah, and I like epic. Epic is a kind of feeling that I think is nice on when you're trying to write rap tunes.
Yeah,
because it lets people just go anywhere. Like you can go and it's like something's got this sort of sweeping broadness about it. You can rap about something really small and insignificant, and
that sounds cool,
and it sounds interesting. Or you can go the opposite way, which we did, right?
Yeah, you can either be like making jokes about Fritos and Cheetos, or you can talk about the miracle and torment of existence.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think when he sent me this back with the opera on it, I was like, what the fuck is this guy doing? Because you said, oh, no, an opera singer is going to sing in this, and I was like, okay, well, I've got a fairly open mind, and I don't, that's what expression's about, right? And it took me a minute, but then as soon as it kind of clicked into place for me, and we did a few more mixes of it. This was one where like
took a while,
was like, woo! And after
I was competing, so I wanted the opera to be the star of the hook.
Yeah.
And I wanted my vocals to be in the background. And the initial mix that I sent to you, just, it was, the hook was crowded, and my rough draft did not clearly communicate my vision. And I remember you said to me, and I thought I had your voice in my head today, there's ways to make space in a beat, and one of them is in a mix, and that is frequencies, right? Things can occupy different frequencies, which I do a lot of that. I do a lot of pulling this out because that shines there. Fundamental frequencies are important things. But you were like, also the center and the sides. And so what we ended up doing, I believe, is the opera is straight down the middle and my voice is on the sides.
Yeah.
And you tried to put the opera on the sides and me straight down the middle, and we were both like, yeah, I don't know. And then, I mean, it took like 4 passes for us to even be like, okay, this is gonna work. You weren't entirely convinced, but you were rolling with it. You weren't like, fuck no. But you were like, we're gonna have to work on this. But you definitely, I think this is the one that you helped mix the most.
But also it's a problem of my own causing, right? Because the synth on this track is the System 100, and it's like a plasma beam, like through the beat every time it comes in. It's like, fuck, I'm like, I wonder if there's, but that's also where you get a lot of the rawness from, right? Like,
yeah, for sure.
It's hot coming out of the machine. It was the processing for that. I was using this preamp that I had. It was a DBX preamp that I used for vocals and stuff, but it makes synthesizers sound like really crackly and noisy and hot in a way that is uncomfortable. But also it means that when you record it in, is like, and there's not really much, even with turning all the compression way down and like bumping the gain stages down, it's like it's still crazy. And that's not, it's similar to Hands Off, right? Like there's elements of the way it's composed that made the post-production and the production and the post-production like really difficult. And it was one of those ones where as soon as we found the balance and like how everything was gonna nicely drape over the car wreck of the like plasma cannon base, then it was easier to see the shape of it, but it took chiseling.
It was really the last piece to making this album like a full album, and it also ushers in the last 3 songs really well, I think, because you get like super epic, and then the next song, Please Don't Tap on the Glass, is like pica again, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And did you do it the same way? You were on the train.
Exactly, but this is even more, even more so than the previous one, like, because this is like, the kind of woodblock thing is it's a sample from a Foley kind of kit,
yes.
And I put it down on the Cubase. You got to start with something, right? When you're making a beat in this kind of like audio collage kind of method, and just put it down, find a tempo for it, and it's Foley for Japanese temple drumming or something like that, right? Like if you've been to Japan, then you would have heard like there's a lot of random drumming that happens at the temples, and I've recorded a bunch of that like from afar, but this was like here's some of the Foley, for film or whatever. And it's like, okay, this is just a song, like this. You know, if it was 2018, maybe I would have just looped it up for 3 minutes 33
sent
it to Rock Marciano or something like that, and like, it probably would have fucking killed it. And this was another one where I'm just vibing to this rhythm on the train. It's like, okay, where's this gonna go? Like, it kind of jumps off, which I like, and especially with the like from a thematic perspective as well, where the the kind of trinity of the songs at the end.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think it's a really nice, like this. I really feel like this last bit, on reflection and listening back as well recently, these last three that's a nice like maxi single we could have just done, right?
But hey, 2nd year anniversary. I'd be willing to put those 3 songs on wax, especially if we got a remix from somebody that would sell.
Sure,
that's something I'm super open to talking about.
I think the thing also this is G2, and this is something the beat is called G2, and it's another one that I don't think, like, even though it's so, it's called Please Don't Tap on the Glass, and that's, it's so that, but I think for me it'll always be that G2.
Sure.
And this is probably the most like UK IDM influence beat I might have ever recorded that has an equal amount of that with an equal amount of like, Mobb Deep or Havoc or those kind of, that sort of East Coast sound like infused into it. And it's probably, I think it's the most satisfied I've ever been with like a filter sweep on a recording, like the way the sort of the texture of the bass when it comes in with the really high pass kind of filter, what, like,
it's so good. It's so good.
I still enjoy listening to that by itself.
This one was the hardest one for me to mix, in that I messed with it too much.
Oh, sure. Yeah, well, there's a lot of, you did go ham on a couple of parts of it.
Yeah, because I just wanted to like have the feeling of, calm and then chaos and then, torment and then relief. And then you get the hook, and the hook's just the drums.
Yeah.
And then it comes back in, but I didn't want it to really pop off until the monkey tries to break out of the cage. And also, frankly, like, the story in the first verse is so much more intense than the story in the second verse. The story in the second verse is sad, right?
Yeah.
And like, I just toyed with it so much. And then I remember, like, it sounded great on my speakers, and then I listened to it in the car and was like, what have I done? And so I had to like back up, and like and like undo a lot of my work to get back into the pocket. And I like, this was one that was like, simpler was probably better. And I undid a lot of my work, and I had layers and layers of different stuff. And I was just like, let's just strip it away and let it be what it is. This also goes off really live. This also goes off really well live. I like sit down and I say, story time, kids, gather around. And I tell the story. And when I go, please don't tap on the glass, I said, don't feed them, leave that to the staff. I like pause, and like, people really pay attention. It's not just because I'm telling a story. It's because of that.
Yeah.
It pops off.
I think those. Yeah.
And then its counterpart, which is the next song, is the exact same tempo.
Yeah, well, 59, right? And this one is 4x59.
Yep.
And this is another circuit jam. Like, this is more of this guy.
Yeah.
But this is even more, from memory, this one is even more like the 10-minute jam or whatever. Did I edit that, or did I send it to you like straight?
Okay, this is what happened. I said, look, I need one more song.
Oh, sure,
because we'd been like, okay, let's put the Elucid song on the album.
Yeah.
By the way, the Elucid track, right? All Tomorrow's Parties, Hands Off. You didn't get me that instrumental until like after we had gotten the album mastered. We almost didn't ever have that.
I know. Yeah, it was like cool.
And it was very fitting, because that's the first song that we made together, and we didn't even know each other. And it was the last piece of all the masters coming together. That's a fun anecdote. Anyway, so I was like, okay, we have 9 songs. Let's just do one more. And you were like, okay. And you sent me this, and you were like, just pick a part that you like and we'll loop it. And it's like 4 minutes long, 4+ minutes long. And I was like, how about instead I write an entire story to the entire length of this with no hook, no pause.
What can
I'm
go
just
wrong?
I'm just gonna write the entire thing. And I like, dude, I spent so much time pacing around in the woods, like writing this thing, because the beat is so crazy. It like morphs. The beat itself is a journey, you know, like I didn't touch this beat at all. I did one thing to the beat, and that is at the very end when I say please don't tap on the glass, I put
The little
the drums from the previous song in.
Yeah,
That's the
yeah.
only thing I did. I used a little compression on the beat because when the bass kicks in, it was a little too intense for me to like mix with my vocals. But like the beat is just what it is. Like this dude DOS send me this crazy beat and was like, pick a section and I'll loop it. I was like, I'll do you better.
Yeah,
I'm gonna use this entire, and I get the most feedback from this one. This beat's crazy. So did you make this one on the train too? What year did you
No,
make
this is different. This is like, so this is heavy food court Skype session era. This is pre-COVID. And this is a late at night one. This is like, my kid is awake, it's 2 a.m. and so am I. So let's try and do something. And like when you've got a young kid like that, time kind of compresses, but you also do have a lot of moments where like I literally just have to stay home now because this kid's asleep and something needs to happen, so my wife's off doing it and I literally can do nothing. Except like be here for when the child wakes up and needs these things. So there was a lot of like, I watched a lot of competitive Counter-Strike. Like in the kids' room, we had a bookshelf. I could just put my phone on the shelf with a ESL like or some Counter-Strike League just on there, no sound obviously because it's just the sounds of carnage and horror, and have the kid turn so his head's over my shoulder or whatever so he can't see, and I'd be holding him for like an hour at a time or whatever, like, and then I'd go into across the hallway and put my headphones on and start streaming on YouTube and start punching away on the drum machine. It was a very weird time, and
nice, get it in when you can,
yeah, exactly. And I think the rhythm of this one is, again, like, because it's quite easy to make a like really full sounding thing on this. When you differentiate something with the rhythm, and I realize, I do that a lot because I think it's an easy way to impart that physicality and the like, movement. Drumming is about movement for me, and that's a big thing, like getting people moving, and that's why it's gratifying to hear that it's good in a live context, right? Because I love it. I have played 0 of these beats in a live context. Like, oh wow, I've never played any of these tracks like live. Right. So I kind of stopped doing that when I had kids, and it's something that I just haven't come back to because it was a lot of I was playing them through like a DJ setup or something like that, and it was just a lot of stress, like on top of actually trying to make the music, right? Because everything is made in a fishbowl in like a very nurturing and easy and flexible environment. When you're up there on the stage, it's like the opposite of that. So right.
Yes, it is.
And that's why I've been trying to like bring back the like, I've been working a lot on the live presentation, which is actually, a good hour of me, not freestyling on drum machines, but like, definitely going a lot liver than I have before, and using it to write tunes as well. And it's because of tunes like this. Like, I'm really happy with the way it all sounds and the way it all comes out. And in theory, it would be reproducible at a show, live. So I think that's the part that interests me now, especially like, so this record is an excellent like confluence of things, because you have that stuff from, really early eras and hands off, and you have those kind of tracks, but also you have these transitionary ones where I'm trying to be like, let's make something that I can come to America and take around the college towns, or like do those kind of things, because like the connection that you make, it's so obvious to me now that the connection you make, live in a room with people is, by far, it's bigger than anything, now, especially with such a fragmented,
of course,
digital experience. Like when you're in a room with people, it's like, it's even more powerful than it has been before.
Certainly.
So
I completely agree. That's why I stay on the road. It's even if I'm playing to 5 people, it doesn't matter.
I'm jealous of that. And honestly, like it's something that I, like it's definitely been I deprioritized that in my life. And luckily now, my kids are older. They're they're 7 and 9, and they're not just needy potatoes anymore. And, they can probably deal with dad going away for a week or two.
Yeah, but definitely. I gotta say, I've never made an album where every single song on the album goes off live until we made this record.
Hey.
This last song, Get Me Out, which was, what was it, Stud?
Yes, Stud. That's correct. It is Stud.
I remember that one the most. You released this beat at a different tempo on
it's on Dostrumentals, isn't it?
Dostrumentals, yes.
One of them.
And this was the one that I was like, I need this, and I need to write the best song on the album to it. And I really thought that I was writing the best song on the album to it. It moved me to rap in a way I haven't rapped in a long time, and to sing in a way that I have never sung on a song before. I'm glad that it's the closer. I'm glad that it has the most cinematic video on the album. Talk about making Stud.
I mean, Stud is rubber, right? Like Stud's a real rubbery.
Yeah.
That's a 100% like hazy Thursday morning on the way to a corporate insurance company that I'm doing a 3-month stint for. I'm working on their compliance systems, or I'm doing something really dry and bullshit, and I want to feel drunk when in the morning before I go. So but I can't drink. I can't,
right.
I shouldn't.
It's inappropriate for you to drink.
Yeah. So, and this is kind of, I remember when I was writing this, I was like, oh, this is kind of like, if I was going to write a sea shanty, this is kind of the way to go. And I felt that as soon as this is another one of the keyboard ones, and it's using like a simple mono synth to play the bass, and I have a click going at 52 or maybe even lower, because this is one of those ones which is really slow. And did you speed it up for the recording?
The version the original version you sent me was faster than the version that is on Dostrumentals. So
it's changed or something. There's been some kind of change.
Right, when you sent me the stems, they were all too slow, and we had to like go digging to find, because I could speed everything up except for the bass.
Oh, maybe it was like
speed up.
Maybe it was a bitrate problem, or like some one of those bullshit problems you have when you try to deal with files. But yeah, it was a real. That's the vibe with this, and the little that's like little FM synth, like FM7, which is a great like VST plugin from the days of Macromedia Director and CD-ROMs. It's still amazing, right? Because digital synthesis is very easy to emulate, funnily enough, with digital hardware, and really nice in that you can load all your presets, your DX7 presets or whatever, like just straight into it from a SysX start. So it's like a VST that you pay a minimal amount for, that there's literally an endless library of presets available for free.
Incredible.
So yeah, I use that one a lot, especially when any of these kind of sounds that doesn't need to be like a plasma cannon. Then that's generally what I'm using. And this is I think that for me, like track is done when it sounds like its own thing. You know,
Yeah.
like when I've put a, you know, you put some drums down or you put a bass line down and then you add something and you write a little turnaround or whatever. And then when it sounds
Yeah.
like its own thing, I'm like, all right, I've got to stop. And I think
Yeah.
this is a good one where I would have thought this is an interesting, I classify this as an interesting beat.
Yeah. I agree.
I think because I mean, again, pretty straight break cut. I mean, there's some layers and stuff in there, but it is pretty straight. And I've tried to keep the dynamics with like the cymbal hitting and stuff like this, which a lot of people understandably take out because having a cymbal hit at the start of every bar, every second bar is like, it's abrasive.
I love it.
It's hard to mix. The energy level's weird.
You know, in fact, I knew something was wrong when I didn't have that cymbal hit at the beginning of every bar. And I was like, hey, dude, I think I'm missing some stems. And it turns out that you had like another version of this beat somehow sitting around. And so you ended up hitting me with like the auxiliary percussion, including some cymbals. And so it was kind of cool though, because like what became of it was like a thing unto its own. So if you guys want to check out Stud on a DOS instrumental album, and then go listen to it on the Tap on the Glass instrumentals. They're two different songs. And the slower one does feel drunker. But it's funny that you say all that because I wrote a song about wanting to escape the planet. Like you didn't want to go to this corporate meeting. And I almost like, I couldn't just write a rap hook. I kind of wrote like a sea shanty hook. Get out of here. You know, like it's this, like I couldn't not put a melody over it.
Yeah.
Which is, you know, you listen through my catalog, there are very few times that I have a melody, especially for a hook, maybe for a second in a verse, but this needed it. And it was just a perfect way to end a very chaotic album, to kind of,
you can tell you're uncomfortable doing it as well. Like, you know, because it's in a space where, you know, from a vocal range perspective as well, it's like you're pushing a boundary there. And like,
I am.
It's
and the way that I ended up having to do it, I originally recorded it like someone get me out of here, but I ended up recording it as someone get me out of here. I'm stuck. And I just talked the hook as quiet as I could and had to sing from this register, which was very difficult to control because that's a very loose part of your voice. And it took me so many takes. I did a couple, you know, beat drops here and there, and the mixing back and forth was a process. But I think the biggest thing that I did was it just starts with just the bass and me singing, and then like the walking back onto the stage for one last song. You know, when it opens up after those first two bars, you were like, there it is, you nailed it. That's what it needed. And like that was one of the last things that we mixed on the record, because I just kept going back and re-recorded my singing part, and then I changed some of my lyrics too. But like, I love that one. And even if I don't end up doing that song in a set, I'll just use that beat as an outro. Like, thanks everybody, I got to get out of here, and I'll walk off stage while that plays, and it just kind of keeps people standing there. That's one of the other reasons that I kept it last. And I would have been a good opening track though. Maybe next time suggest it on like year 2 instead of year 5.
Yeah. So in 10 years time, when the next one of these records comes out, no, I think the whole mixing process of this record, like it was a, you know, it definitely was a big journey. And in the past, I think because of my geographical separation from basically everyone that I, you know, work with a lot, I have kind of had to over the years learn to like let it go. For sure. But with this one, it was like, I can't always see the vision every time, but I know that, you know, I know that the combination is like a block of marble, right? And like as we chip away at it, you know, the form will emerge, and it definitely did. And I'm really happy that you know, we were able to get the record out when we did, and like it didn't take 10 years.
It didn't. No, it didn't. In fact, like despite COVID, it only took a few years, you know, and like I think that I initially hit you with too many mixes at once, as I used to do to everybody. And I eventually was like, oh, this dude wants to work on one track at a time
Yeah.
and wants to have notes and input, which is great. I just want the people I'm working with to be semi-interested
Yeah.
in what we're doing. That's all I need. That's
Yeah,
all
exactly,
I need.
right?
Get on Zoom, chat every now and then,
Yeah,
show
exactly,
each other,
yeah.
you know, our cats or whatever. And like,
Keep it moving.
that's all I really need. And I think that we both knew that we were gonna slowly but surely put in the work, pay attention to each other's notes, and make something that we were both happy with in the end. And like, we did it.
Yeah.
And I'm psyched. I can throw these instrumentals on anytime now. Like, they're just available. Like, this instrumental record didn't even exist until a month ago because we had so many different versions of masters. And
Oh my god.
you know, like, I like was like, make sure I have a version of Insomnus with the opera singing, and make sure that I have oh, actually I want to take the sample out. We have 2 moments in this instrumental record where there's vocal tracks. The surprise and
And how.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I thought about taking those out, but I was like, dog, you've done enough. Just send it.
They're fine. They're good. They're good.
Fine.
And in a pinch, you can use it at the show, right? Like, you can just.
And in a pinch, I could just put this on and rap over it.
Yeah.
Hell
exactly.
yeah.
Yeah, man. No, it's great. And yeah, I appreciate all the work that you'd put in yourself on this, because it's something that I know that as a solo artist or whatever, like, it's all about your own motivation and being intrinsically motivated rather than extrinsically motivated, and like that has meant that the expression of the not doodling, but the more freestyle conceptual sort of art piece of it has found an expression in a way that has created something new. Like, you definitely took something from the collection of tracks that wasn't there and manifested it. So I think art.
We did it.
Art is the winner today.
Art is the winner. And anybody, if you want to check out Tap on the Glass instrumentals, they're streaming everywhere. It's pay what you want on Bandcamp. Play it loud. Play it loud. Nope, don't be afraid. Turn that up.
Or play it quietly when you're having a dinner party until someone says, "What the fuck is this? Can you change it?"